Hi everyone, the Lone Wolf here. Welcome back to some EVE Online. Welcome back also to my Jita Station Captain's Quarters. Today's video is going to be about the dev blog concerning the Tiamat release. There are some interesting tidbits in there. It's again not that big a release, but I do think a few of them deserve discussion. Obviously, there is the Zvi pool, but I think that Johnny Pugh and Dagarn have been trying to cover that ship from CC quite extensively already. So let's check it out. I'll have to go to the browser. Probably the best way to go is the community website. And this is interesting. CSM 10 Council of Stellar Management candidate applications are now open. So if you want to run for the CSM, check all of that out. Personally, while I like the idea of the CSM, and I actually do think it's good for the game and for CCP in general, I also understand that it's a huge time sink, so that is not in my ambitions at the moment. Anyways, let's go towards the dev blogs here, and let's see if the page wants to load. Coming to EVE in Tiamat, that's the dev blog we're here for. So, first of all, new NPCs with new abilities. Smarter and more cunning adversaries will begin to appear after the release of Tiamat. This has a lot to do with the storyline that's currently developing. It involves the Sleepers, it probably involves the Jovians. We've had all of these teasers about a new type of battleship that could make its way in K-space, so in normal space. And we don't know a lot about it, honestly. We know, of course, that there was this big explosion, this one event that has caused all of these objects, all of these structures to start to uncloak, or their cloaks starting to not function the way they should. Then we get the Sleepers coming outside of wormhole space. Now they start to shoot players, or to shoot back at players is what I should actually say. So it's an interesting storyline, but I do feel, maybe it's because I live in the C1, but I also think because we've not had any actual in-game events where devs would fly stuff, do things in a certain system that we could join in and try to influence the storyline somehow. So I do feel we're a little detached from it at the moment, so I'm having a hard time feeling extremely involved. I can follow the storyline very nicely with all the teasers on Reddit, on the forums and all of that, and also in the chat channels, but I feel it's very hard at the moment to somehow get involved in it. So I'm more of just a spectator waiting on the sidelines to see when there is finally something happening that I can actually dive into myself, grab a ship, get over there and check out what's happening. So that's not really been in the cards, but maybe that's all in the planning at later phases, who knows. The storyline is definitely pretty interesting, and it's fun to read all of the theories that people are coming up with concerning the star exploding, concerning the Sleepers, the Jovians, and of course the other, that AI that is involved in all of that as well somehow. Very interesting stuff, but at the moment it's hard for me to make any real coverage of that. Next up, the Minmatar Tactical Destroyer, the Zvi pool. So I think that you already have a pretty good idea of what this ship does, but I see a lot of potential for a very fast sniping ship. So I do think it will have its niche, it will have its use. Yeah, check out CC. I think if you want to get your hands on it before the Tiamat release. Projectile weaponry balance, that's just in line with the Zvi pool release, trying to balance that out just a little bit. This is probably going to be the most controversial one. An option to have Concord intervene in internal corporation conflicts. So I had a bit of a discussion with Johnny Pugh about this. When we first heard it announced, I think it was on the 07 show, it really sounded like they were going to disallow any corp-on-corp violence. Or I should say corp member on corp member violence, so somehow restrict your weapons from firing or something like that, and we both thought that that was a terrible idea. We actually like the idea that the corporation has to police and monitor its own members, keeping an eye on thieves, keeping an eye on spies and all of that good stuff. And so we were a little bit worried about what was announced there, but it turns out that it's only going to be a Concord intervention. So this actually means that you can still shoot a corp mate in nullsec, in wormhole space, in lowsec. It's just in highsec a corporation can choose to have Concord intervene just because, well, you know, sometimes there are thieves, sometimes there are people infiltrating your corporation just to try and take out a blinky ship. So I'm okay with this one, but we have to be very careful that CCP doesn't start on a slippery slope that is going to actually take risk away from the game in an unnecessary way. I can sort of understand having Concord intervene for like young corporations who don't want to be infiltrated by someone that's going to steal everything or shoot that one nicely pimped out chip that they've created, or something like that. I can understand it a little bit, but I do feel that it is still taking away some responsibility by the players to police themselves, to police their own corporation. And so it's still okay, but don't push this any further is what I would say. Corporation management quality of life updates. So there are going to be some changes to our corporation's work just to try and improve that. This is still very early. CCP is actually planning a full overhaul of the corporation management, so I don't think that this is going to be too big just yet. New physically based rendering additions. So some better light effects near planets as well. New UI icon additions and more themed UI elements. Okay, just generally small improvements again. Visual updates to structures in missions and other locations. Quality settings for sun flares, so allowing lower quality effects on rigs that don't want the game to run too resource intensively. Atmosphere sounds for pirate faction structures, firing aftershock sound for turrets. I haven't seen or checked that out yet, but I think it's going to be interesting to see if it actually adds something noticeable to the weapon effects. Audio engine performance improvements, that's always welcome, of course, and then the Tiamat theme music, which should be coming out once it is done. So yeah, I do like the Sveepool myself. I think it's a pretty interesting ship. I like, of course, how the storyline is developing in all of this. I'm a little bit just basically neutral when it comes to the Concord intervention for corp member on corp member actions, but in general there is one thing that I've also noticed, that people feel that this is actually a small release and there's not that much content here, and I would agree with that. It is a small release, but I also think it's sort of understandable. We are right after the holidays, so I can imagine that CCP was not at full strength when it came to developing the current release right here. And there is FanFest, of course. FanFest is not that far away anymore. CCP is probably trying to prepare for that as well. So that is probably why this release is a little bit lighter. And there is, of course, another major reason for this, is that we know what CCP is actually working on at the moment, and that is the nullsec rebalance and normally also the POS revamp. So those are actually two really big items that CCP has actually been too scared to tackle for what, 11 or 12 years because of how complex and old the code is, and how really in the guts of EVE Online these two aspects of the game are. So I would say CCP has already shown after last summer what they're capable of when they are at full strength, and that they can do a really good job. The things they're trying to tackle now are really hard and will require them to hit the bullseye. They've got to get this right, so we should be patient with them when it comes to a few smaller releases. If this means a successful nullsec overhaul and a successful POS overhaul, I think no one can complain about that. Anyways, that's it for this quick look at this devblog about the Tiamat release. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.